Hey everyone, it's Matthew back at the Hub. I'm with Lindsay again. This is about our 5th time working together, so there's a lot of other footage about our conversations. But today, Lindsay and I are going to talk in this session about a little bit about what it's like to psychologically live with prosthetics, how people relate to it, how she relates to it, what it means for sensation. Is it part of her body? Is it not? All these things that we don't really have words for and are hard to talk about. As I was talking to Lindsay about it before, she's not been asked these types of questions very often. So we're in new territory. Just very quickly, Lindsay was in a car accident when she was 18. She has an amputation below each knee. For the backstory of that was back in 2000, right?
2001.
2001. For the backstory of that, there's a different video of that. It's a fascinating one. But we're going to talk about this other thing. So I'm curious, just to start off, the general question is that in relationship to your own body, how do you think and live with and through your prosthetics? Is it part of your body, not?
I feel like my prosthetics are a part of my body. However, I feel like it kind of wavers from time to time when they're well-fitting, or ideally I want them to feel like they're a part of my body. But when they're not fitting well, then they don't feel like they're a part of my body. And so my brain wants really, in my body, my mind, and my spirit really wants them to feel like they're part of my body. I don't know if that fully answers your question.
No, right, no, for sure.
But that's kind of...
I mean, it's curious because, like, for example, although yours is more overt, right, that a lot of people feel that different parts of their body aren't part of their body as much anymore. We see that a lot in beginning yoga students. Right, is that they don't, well, God, I haven't really been thinking about my feet like that in forever, or with disability. So some of that happens. What's very interesting for me is that when I was first injured, the technology over the years has really tried to make the wheelchair feel like part of my body, right? They kind of get you in a position, kind of like you're going to go really fast and be a racer. And for me, one of the big realizations for me is that I don't live in a wheelchair. I get around on a wheelchair. So for me, the separation would be very different.
Yeah.
Was important, right? That I'm not. But what's interesting is for you, because it is literally being part of your body, you have a different relationship to it. So when you feel them as part of your body, that's when you're walking and doing things. Does that mean you're not aware? Do you ever have times where you're walking around and you're not aware of your prosthetics? Does it become part of your natural rhythm so much your brain doesn't pay attention?
It does, and it's this like beautiful flow that when I can walk around and it doesn't feel like I'm wearing prosthetics. I feel like I can ambulate and move as free as I remember moving before.
Really?
And that's a beautiful thing, until I catch
Until
my
it doesn't
toe
fit
and I'm
right.
like, oh,
Or until it doesn't feel good,
yeah,
like it's not
exactly.
fit right. So it's part of the flow. So do you feel like you're touching the ground all the time, like all the way through your whole body? Because I would say in a wheelchair, that's not what you end up feeling. So
right.
there's a big
and
contrast
I've spent
here.
a small amount of time in a wheelchair over the years when I have sores or legs aren't fitting well and so forth, or I break something and so I don't have a leg. And I think there's a definite difference. I mean, my perception when I've used a wheelchair is it's my way to get around, for the time being, but I don't feel like it's a part of me at all.
So part of your goal is an integration of the prosthetic into your whole.
Yes, that's a great way to put it.
Right. So that's that, and so you don't feel like you're hovering in thin air.
No.
See, that's actually one of the things that happens when you're in a wheelchair. You kind of don't even realize that you're just kind of hovering all the time. So that's cool. That you get a different kind of grounding from it. So, but then like when you do bump into something, like stub your toe, and you don't feel it, is it like a shock that you don't feel it, or is it like wow,
it kind of stops me dead in my tracks because I'm moving along carefree, and then all of a sudden I catch my toe on something I didn't see in my path, and it stops me, and then I kind of flail, and then that's where I have that realization. It's like, oh yeah, the foot doesn't move the same, or I have to think. I need to be more aware of the things around me because I'm not going to feel something if I step on it or if it's in my path before I'm already in motion, trying to stop my fall.
You see, it seems like this is quite a testament to how well they do with prosthetics now, right? I mean, I'm sure even, has it changed a lot since 2001 to
Prosthetics
now?
have changed a lot since
Gotten better?
2001. The feet have become significantly different. The first set of feet that I was in, I got around, I would say then, pretty well. But they didn't really allow me to move with such a natural gait and to, climb up and down stairs and to carry things in a way that I felt really confident. And now, I carry our daughter, I've carried my son when he was little over the years, and now I feel like I can do things like I did before.
Yeah,
It's a lot.
I got to imagine too that you get that people when they meet you don't know right away that you are wearing prosthetics. Is that the case?
Yeah.
Just if you're wearing pants or whatever.
Yeah, people have commented and said that if I'm wearing pants, they wouldn't know that I'm an amputee. I almost always wear like skirts or capris or something, but
And is that an easy thing for you to do?
it is. I've never loved pants.
Yeah.
I mean, I would rather, wear like a skirt or capris or just, something easy with, and even more so now that I'm an amputee because my legs are in a closed system and so it gets warm and so I like just having my skin, feeling the air and so forth.
And there wasn't any psychological barrier to that? Were you ever, when you're first injured, was there something you tried to cover up? I know that what's interesting about people in wheelchairs when they first are injured, a lot of people have a hard time getting by. You are perceived differently in a room, and you can't cover it up, right?
Right.
And some people don't get through that barrier as well as others, right? And so I'm curious if even though you move and ambulate so well that's just you couldn't even tell. But was that a process for you to get to that point where skirts were no big deal?
For me, it wasn't, and so I've had to learn over the years how to relate in a way that's more compassionate to others who struggle with, their legs showing.
Other people with amputations?
Other people who live with.
Is that a common thing that people have trouble with?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like it is just because I've met so many people who, want to wear pants and don't want their legs to show. They feel like people stare and things like that. And I can imagine that that's uncomfortable. I mean, I know people look at me and people say things, but it doesn't bother me. I like to educate people, and I love it when kids are like, "What happened? Why are your legs like that?" So that wasn't really a process for me. I think. I don't know if you'd call it a reverse thing, but sometimes I wish that I could cover up my legs only because sometimes I feel like I'm kind of a target. Like, I don't know how to exactly describe it. I have felt uncomfortable in situations where people seem like they're unsafe, and so I'm in a situation like that where I kind of wish I could hide my legs a little bit.
What do you mean people feel unsafe? Tell me a little more about that.
I have been in situations like living in different parts of California or in different environments where I have felt unsafe, like in the community or where I'm at, and so I kind of feel
like a tough neighborhood.
Yeah, so I kind of feel like sometimes like people who live with a disability are perceived as being more vulnerable, and so that's kind of the only situation where I feel like I wish I could hide them a little bit, but I haven't wanted to hide them because I want to hide the fact that I'm an amputee or anything like that.
Yeah, it's interesting because for me, without knowing it took me years of doing yoga before I just started to wear shorts again. And it wasn't because I necessarily was ashamed of it. I just didn't think of my body that way, And now, obviously, I wear shorts all the time. So for me, it was a process. And why do you think you're different? Why some people, at least that you've met, are more uncomfortable? It's that you don't feel like you have anything to hide, or you just don't really care? It's more about keeping your legs cool. Has it been more practical? Has it been just more like you're more extroverted? I don't know.
It is more practical for me. It allows me to add socks throughout the day when I'm losing volume in my legs.
What does that mean?
So, as an amputee, your limbs change volume. Actually, our whole bodies, your
With,
body
like more
changes
fluid, yeah,
throughout the
I have
day.
swelling and stuff, yeah.
And that's something that we don't really think about or realize until you're in a very close, intimate system where you need to fit. And so it's maybe not the greatest analogy, but like when you overeat and you're wearing a pair of blue jeans and you're like, oh my gosh, this is really tight. My pants are tight. So I get that swelling overnight when I have my legs off, or if I've eaten something that has too much salt, or if I eat some foods I'm more sensitive to, I'll say.
Wow.
And so, if I'm out walking a lot throughout the day, or I'm just for whatever reason losing water volume in my body, then my legs shrink. And so I need to add a sock to take up that space that's being lost.
And you
the
can kind of
fluid
tell
that's
right
being
away.
lost.
So you're losing fluid during
Yeah.
the day.
And then your body, kind of puts that back in overnight. And so I have deal with what's called volume fluctuation in my limbs. And there's different ways that an amputee can help to manage volume fluctuation. But I'll just say for myself, I like to just add a sock throughout the day. It's not the most ideal way, but it's what I do or what works right now.
So when you kind of perceive the prosthetic as part of your body when you're moving through your life and you feel connected to the ground, when you don't wear your prosthetics, like I know you've said in other times to me that sometimes you go around your house without your prosthetics, do you feel like you're missing part of your body?
Oh, I do.
Okay.
I do.
So
I mean, it's interesting because I can get around and I can ambulate really well. I mean, I've painted our old house without my legs on because I was in a situation where one side I had an infection and so I couldn't wear my leg for a while, but I really wanted these projects done, and so I'd get around on my knee pads and I painted I don't know how many different rooms of our house using a ladder. But I feel more vulnerable because I can't move as quick and I can't, just like jump up and answer the door, or if there was like a safety reason, like if there was a fire, an earthquake, things like that when we lived in California, I wouldn't be able to react as fast. But I also felt like I was missing something. Because I was. I'm missing my legs.
Yeah, and you do call them your legs. I've noticed that.
Yeah.
Too. I've got a new leg. I got my legs and stuff. Do you ever get surprised? Like for me, I've been in 41 years, I think, since I've been injured, and we're coming up on it. And I still get surprised sometimes that I get around in a wheelchair. Like where I'll wake up and see the wheelchair next to my bed and go, dang, really? I can't believe, So like but at the same time, if you were to sneak in my room at night and take my wheelchair away, and I open my eyes, I would feel like, what? I'd feel like naked, not, like right away. So I'm curious about do you get surprised? Like when you're not wearing them, you roll out of bed, do you go to stand up ever?
No.
But it's deeper enough into your brain. It's not like you go to stand up and thinking you have a prosthetic and you don't on.
Well, I have done that once or twice, and it was because I was tired, and I had my leg on, and I took it off for a second, to put on a different pair of pants or something. I can't remember the exact situation, and then I got distracted in conversation, and then went to stand up. However, I have heard that people who are new amputees, especially, will be in bed and they get up and unfortunately they fall and end up getting hurt because they stand up and they think they have both legs. I have not been in that situation. I do like to keep my legs near me if I'm not wearing them.
Isn't that
kind
funny?
of a safety thing.
It's like if the wheelchair gets too far away. I remember when I was first going to traditional classes, and at first I needed my wheelchair near when I was on the floor, but then it would be like a sense of freedom if my wheelchair wasn't next to me, except it still had to be in view. Like if you took it and put it out in the hall, someone takes the wheelchair and I'm done, right? Like I'm just stuck there. So it's so funny. So it sounds to me, and this is one of the things that we've been exploring throughout all of the sessions, is that it sounds to me that you've done such a deep job of integration that the prosthetic has become, I don't know how you'd say it, second nature, or your prosthetics become second nature. But yet, you don't forget you don't have them on. You know what I mean? Because it's 2001, so we're looking at 18 years. your brain doesn't forget. Like it knows to be safe. And even when you're like, how about middle of the night? You have to go to pee really bad. Do you?
I use my knee pads in the middle of the night.
But you're aware of that. So you're not like going to step out of bed without.
No.
So it's not that second nature. Because I think what we've been exploring is like we did the session on standing poses and stuff, is that we're exploring the relationship that the human nervous system has to have and project sensation into what's not there, and have that become part of how your brain functions. So like just by like all of these conversations, right? All these things you're saying, it's so clear that it's so deeply integrated, right? How about when you were first injured? Was it hard? Did your friends have a hard time figuring out how to be with you? Did they, was it just not an issue?
It's interesting. Most people just embraced and they were the same people. But you could tell that some people just didn't quite know what to say. There was like this empty space of like, I don't know, do you say something? Do you not say something? I think many of us have probably been in that situation, not just with someone with a disability, but something has changed in someone's life, and then you're just not quite sure, what to say. I don't know. I appreciate when people just treat me the same as I was before, because I'm not a different person,
right.
just because I walk around with prosthetics on.
Yeah. So none of that transition, or is that just? Do you think that's honestly more a symptom of just who you are, that you never went through the reintegration issue with your social group or the outward world? Like it sounds to me from what you're saying, you just kind of did it. It wasn't really a big deal.
Yeah, I felt like that's just how.
Is that just something about you,
I think so.
Do you think you figured something out, or you just?
Well, a part of it maybe is that I really just wanted to live life as I was living before. I mean, not exactly how it was, but I wanted to be able to go to school and to work and to do the things that I wanted to fulfill goals, and so I didn't want this to stop me. And I had seen that there was other people in this world that live with prosthetics that, have jobs and they work and they do things, they have families, and so I just figured, well, I can too. And I know though it's really hard for some people to integrate back into their life when they become an amputee.
Made sense to you somehow.
So,
So let's talk quickly a little bit about what it's like when you were told, when you first were figuring out how to integrate this into your sense of body, your brain sense of body, right? It's been integrated, and psychologically, clearly it's been integrated. But when what the medical model is saying, or people having fit prosthetics, you can't feel this, can't feel that. Like, what kind of limitations did you experience from the way that other people perceived what you could feel?
Sure. So from the beginning, and I didn't really have words for it then, so it's really been neat to dialogue and talk about this with you. In the beginning, I always felt like I wanted to feel my feet. And that I felt like when I was standing up in prosthetics, that my feet were still there, that I could still wiggle my toes. I feel like that's seated. I feel like, I'm sitting here doing this with my toes. I feel like I can lift my toes and I can press through the ball of the foot, even though the toes I was born with, the feet I was born with aren't there. However, I was told that doesn't exist. And so it felt contradicting in my head when I was a new amputee, and I thought, well, but I feel like I can feel this. And so a part of me thinks, well, am I kind of nuts? Because I feel like I'm sensing something, but medical professionals are saying, well, those are just phantom sensations. Those don't exist. You don't have feet anymore. And it almost felt like I was kind of being dumbed down. So it's been an interesting journey, especially coming into a yoga practice, to realize that these sensations are there. I mean, they're real. What I'm feeling is real for me.
What was the process of you believing in that level of invisible metaphysic, right? Like, did you just, hey, it's what I'm experiencing? Did you have to get angry at when you're being told that? Did you go through phases like, no, I actually can feel it? Like, how did you claim that territory? of
That's
sensation?
a good question. It's been just a process over the years. So in the beginning, I don't know that I can't say that I was like angry towards someone, but I would say to myself or to other people that I trusted, I really do feel this. Like, the medical professionals don't understand. Like, there's a certain sensation that I want in how the prosthetic fits, but they're not understanding like how to get me there. And so that was a process, and I still work through that and deal with that as I,
Even
work
now,
with different prosthetists and with different. Every time I get a new prosthetic, trying to articulate how it feels and the sensation that I'm looking for.
Do you find them rolling their eyes, or do you find them
I have literally seen people roll their eyes.
like you can't feel it? So you're violating their sense of metaphysics, which is part of why we're exploring in all these sessions, right?
Yeah.
Is that there's a different part of the human metaphysic, or the potential of the human nervous system, or the potential of neuroplasticity, or who knows what the words are.
I feel like it's all of that.
Yeah, no, it's all of that, and trying to say, but like when I know in my case, when I had told similar things about sensation, is that what they were worried about that I wasn't reconciling, right, was that I would think that this sensation might mean I'm having neurological return. My spinal cord was healing, so they were worried that I wouldn't accept my disability.
Yeah.
What's interesting in your case, right, is that clearly they're not thinking that you're thinking that this sensation will help you grow another leg.
Right.
Right? Like a salamander. And yet the paradigm has the same response. No, those aren't real. Right? So there isn't like, in my case, the motivation is a little bit more understandable because they're worried about a certain level of acceptance. In your case, it's more literally that it violates their sense of sensation. Right? And so would you say the process of yoga was real helpful in helping you believe in that level of sensation?
Yeah, it just kind of reaffirmed what I was feeling, and then
and clarified it some,
yeah,
right?
it
Help you to be
did.
able to like influence it, right?
And it helps me to better articulate it when I'm talking to other people who are in or have been in similar situations where a medical professional is saying, "Oh, you don't feel that. That's not there." And
Yeah, boy, those are
it's neat
interesting
to be able to
conversations.
dialogue them with
I-
other amputees and
I-
other people.
I kind of hope that the medical profession in this respect is getting more comfortable with what they don't know. I mean, I think that the opening of neuroscience and with the MRIs, and that they're realizing they don't really know how any of the communication goes. And so hopefully there's a little bit more willingness to work through that, hey, there might be sensation here. What's so interesting is what I can tell you've experienced it too, is how kind of rigid they get in denial of what you're feeling, as if it's threatening.
Yes.
Right? Would you agree?
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, that somehow they're threatened. And it's so curious because is it a threat to how they were educated? Or is there something else going on too? I think that's for sure true, right? Because they're looking for the causal mechanism and what could possibly be the causal mechanism of sensation and input coming from a limb that doesn't exist, right? Right, so there's that level, it threatens that. But I kind of wonder if like it threatens at a more primordial level, like there's like, dang, the world can't be that connected, or you'll try to say it means this and this, and you'll start seeing unicorns, or, like it's an interesting question as to, one of the real signs of wisdom is to know what you don't know and be okay, and then work with, What I find is even when they work with me with sensation, in the back of their mind, they're saying, well, it's just imagination. So they don't, until they start feeling it in their own bodies, and that's one of the strategies of Mind Body Solutions, is to try to get them to feel this level of sensation in their own bodies, and then say, hey, that's the level. I'm curious, in wrapping up, if you have any advice you would give to somebody who's had an amputation, or that's beginning to know that what they're being told, there's no sensation, that's imagination, that'll go away, right? What advice might you have for somebody who is knowing that they're feeling something, except that they don't know what it is and they don't know how to work with it? What advice would you have for them?
I really like the words that you used earlier when we were talking, the permission to explore. 'Cause I think that's what it is. You have to just have that willingness to just delve deeper into your own experience, and then the rest I think will happen.
Why do you think that's so hard? Well, now we're talking like big questions for everybody, right? To explore this level of sensation that isn't the way the world operates, or most of the world.
I think for me initially it was because externally I was getting the input that that's not true. It's not true. It's not true. It's not happening to you. And so then your mind goes, well, maybe it's not you. So you question what you're feeling. And so you're almost in this like duality, like, but I feel this, but they're saying I don't. And you kind of go back and forth, and it's sort of a struggle. So when you give yourself that permission to explore, then it's just like, okay, it's almost like a relief.
Yeah,
It's
I
like,
think it is.
okay, and just being really open to whatever you are experiencing.
What I've experienced is that when I help someone like with a spinal cord injury realize this is that they'll say things like, God, this just makes so much sense. Like all of a sudden, there was this part of their experience that no one was talking about, and then they're kind of not just permission to explore, but like, yeah, no, that's a level of sensation. You just
Yeah.
have to know it's not going to help you run away from a saber-toothed tiger.
Yeah.
Right? It's coming from it's got a different function. Our nervous system has capacity and potential that isn't just directly for physical survival,
Right.
but it is going to help you balance better and integrate your prosthetics better. It's like part of me, I try to leave this type of thing with the marvel of how much potential there is in the human nervous system.
There is.
Right, that there's just, it can integrate and do things that we never knew. All right, so, and you just say stick with it, right? Because the other thing I know too is it takes time.
It does.
Yeah, talk a little bit about the process of time. It's not like suddenly you have legs again, right?
No, I mean, so I could say I guess I'll just talk about like when I'm looking for a specific like sensation in a prosthetic fit. Sometimes it's sort of like meditation. It is meditation because, I'm searching for something, and sometimes I just have to sit and just I guess, feel what I'm feeling, and not give it a lot of thought or worry. I tend to like be the worrier, so I'm always like, and trying to change things. And so by just sitting with it and feeling it and going about my day, and then kind of coming back to it later, or coming back to it just when I don't know, just when it's the right time, it's amazing that I'll go, oh, that's what I'm feeling. It's this, this, and this, or oh, it wasn't that. It's this, and I don't know. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
it's part of it. It's so funny, and that's what we'll wrap up on. It is so hard, not just for Lindsay, not just for me. It's so hard for anyone to feel and be honest with what they're feeling without judgment. Right? That doesn't mean, it's like how it fits into the world is the next level of question. What's it going to mean for your yoga practice? What's it going to mean, right? But that's not, at first you just have to let it be what it is, which is so hard for human beings to do.
It is.
It's not just for us. All right, well, so we're going to start working on in the next session about doing some poses with and mostly without prosthetics.
Sounds great.
All right. Until the next one.